and welcome to Music at the Piano. In today's video, we're taking a look at Alexander Reinagle's Opus 1 number 15 from his 24 short and easy pieces for keyboard, or sometimes called short and easy lessons. He composed these when he was teaching piano lessons in Glasgow, Scotland in the 1700s, late 1700s. In a different video, I have the exact date. So two things I want to talk about first before I go into the solfege a little bit, solfege of the right hand, and then the harmonic and formal analysis. And then we'll have the Reinagle Minute at the end. So if one of those things doesn't interest you, you can fast forward. But first, you have this two-note chord here, and ideally you want to project the top note more than the bottom note because the A is the melody note. And the way you do that is you train your hand that the fourth finger will go down more quickly, ever so slightly more quickly into the A, then the second finger will go to the F sharp. This would be it in slow motion. Just kidding. The other way. So you can even practice going getting them closer and closer together. So loudness and softness has to do on the piano with speed of attack. So if the fourth finger is going into the key more quickly than the second finger, the note played by the fourth finger will sound louder than the note played by the second finger. So that's one thing. And the other thing is touch and articulation for this time period. Before Clementi and Mozart got into it, non-legato was the normal articulation. And these pieces would have been probably used by students of harpsichord or the early pianoforte. So it is not necessary to try to make a legato connection between every single note. So the fingering does not have to be a legato fingering. You can pick up your hand and move it when necessary, and you might be able to see how I do that in the keyboard view video of this, which has already been published. All right, so I can't sing all the ranges that this happens in, so I'm going to play the right hand melody and sing the solfege as best I can, and you should do the same thing. And I might go down an octave, or I might go up an octave, who knows. So this is in D major, and D is the tonic. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. And the tune starts on so. Here I try. So, la, so, so, so. So, la, ti, do, re, do, ti, la, so. So, la, sol, 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 fa, mi, re, do, ti, do, re, ti, do. And for yourself, you can repeat that, but I'm not going to inflict that upon you. Re, ti, so, so, so. So, mi, do, do, do. La, so, fa, mi, re, do, ti, so, do, re, do, ti, do, re, ti, do. And one thing you might notice by doing that is that these two measures are the same as these two measures. This is an octave lower than this, and this is an octave higher than that. But the last two bars of each section is exactly the same. But there's a lot of things different. Now, as far as I know, nobody has assigned many of these pieces to an RCM syllabus level or any level whatsoever. But I would say that from about number 11 on, any of these would make good introductory pieces to this style of music before you start your student on Haydn, Mozart, or Beethoven. Haydn was a contemporary, maybe a little bit older, but definitely a little bit older. But Hugh's other brother, Joseph, played in the orchestra that Haydn conducted when Haydn was retired and came to London. So they would have known Haydn's music. Okay, so here we are. This is a binary form, a two-part form. Big letter A, big letter B. And A is made up of a smaller lowercase a, and then it starts off the same but ends differently, so then we call that A prime. the B section starts, of course, with a B phrase, and then a completely contrasting phrase, which we'll call baby letter C. The first measure is outlining the tonic chord, first and second measures. The tonic chord is D, F sharp, A, and you've got a lot of D, F sharp, A's. In fact, that's all you have except for an upper neighbor tone, though. There, here, now the 4 chord is G, B, D, and you have G, B, D, G, D, D, and the C and the C is a passing tone, and the E is an upper neighbor tone. And that's a B, D, and it just kind of fits right in. We'll just say that's part of the 4 chord. Now here you have a 5 chord, which is D, F sharp, A, and then the 5/7 chord's not. I don't think the C sharp is part of that chord. In fact, I'm not sure what I was thinking. Yes, it is. A, C sharp. Sorry, I went the wrong way. This is a 5 chord, and the D is something like held over. Maybe a little pedal tone. Probably if somebody knows better, correct me. So you go 4, then a 5 chord with a held over D, going back to 4, and then going to a 1 chord in first inversion with the F sharp on the bottom. And then you repeat 1, 1, 1, and then we go into a 4 chord, which is G, B, D, except the B is on the bottom, so you get the number 6. And then I think those are passing tones. And then a 2 chord is E, G, B. And here we have the E and the G. And a chord progression of 2, 5, 1 is common. So there's a 2, then an A, C sharp, E. The D is a passing tone, and then a 1 chord, if that makes sense. Now, this section, what's interesting is that while you had 2 bars of 1 at the beginning, you've got 2 bars of 5 at the beginning of the B section, even though the notes are more or less different, except for that repeated note there is a little bit of a copy. And then here you have a sequence. So the same intervals starting on a different note, that's called a sequence. And that's back to the tonic with lots of passing tones. Then here you have, so instead of 1, 1, it's 5, 5, 1, 1. He kind of elongates this idea because it doesn't go into the 4 stuff business until the second phrase, G, B, D, and anything that isn't a G, a B, or a D is a passing tone. And here he slides the 2 chord in, E, G, 5, A, C sharp, E, and then he throws in a 6 chord, which is in this instance, a B, D, F sharp. 6, 2, 5, 1 is also a common chord progression. 6, 2, 5. So I hope that helps. So I guess to practice this, I would probably learn, after you slept through it all once to see what's going on, I would learn that last 4 bars here first, because this is the hardest one, I think, with all the passing tones and everything. And then, I would just learn it 4 bars at a time in backward sections, because this is a little more challenging than the beginning. But of course, everything is going to get equally practiced because there's not that much in terms of exact repetition. He's getting a little more advanced here in his use of materials because these are for slightly more advanced students. And so there's not as much straight up repetition. But I really like this piece. It's very clever. So up next is the Reinagle Minute. Thank you for watching and listening, and I hope that you learned something. In today's Reinagle Minute, we're going to take a little look at some biographical information about Alexander Reinagle's brother Hugh, the cellist, and their trip to Lisbon. Hugh Reinagle was born in Portsmouth, England in 1759 and passed away in Lisbon, Portugal on March 19, 1785. As a youngster, he studied cello with his brother-in-law, the cellist Johann Georg Christoph Schettke, and and then went to London for his debut in 1779 and appeared frequently in increasingly prestigious venues. According to the Grove Music Online, a valuable resource, he was one of the instrumentalists who performed regularly at the Freemasons' Hall in 1783. Unfortunately, Hugh developed serious lung trouble, became very ill, and the family sent him with his brother Alexander to Lisbon, Portugal, in hopes that this would improve his health. And as I mentioned before, they departed England on September 3rd, 1784, and arrived in Lisbon on October 23rd, 1784. Unfortunately, the change in climate did not improve his health, and he passed away on March 19th, 1785, which was less than 6 months after they had arrived. Grove Music Online notes that his passing was noted in an English periodical of the day called Gentleman's Magazine, and this is evidence of his renown because Gentleman's Magazine only noted the births, marriages, and deaths of quote-unquote considerable persons, in addition with their articles and reviews. So as far as Alexander in Lisbon, from their arrival in October to the end of 1784, he was getting his brother settled, and then he resumed performing in 1785, according to our resource by Ms. Krause, which all the resources are listed in the description. He gave a concert in the Assembly Rooms in Lisbon on January 8th of 1785, and a week later he performed for the Portuguese royal family. He also corresponded with C.P.E. Bach, Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, Bach's son, who worked in the court of Frederick the Great of Prussia. Bach sent him some music that Alexander Reinagle needed but could not acquire in Lisbon. And they had worked this out before too. They had done some exchanges before. And later, when Alexander was trying to have a music publishing business in London, C.P.E. Bach also sent him music that he could publish without fear of it being pirated. So they had a pretty good relationship, and also, interestingly enough, Bach requested sketches of Alexander and his brother Hugh be sent to him for his memory book that he kept of musicians that he knew. So that was kind of interesting that he collected sketches of musicians, that C.P.E. Bach collected sketches of musicians that he knew to remember them by. So in addition to teaching and performing in Lisbon, so obviously he did some teaching, he did some performing, he also sold pianos, and he corresponded with the Broadwood Company in England. Incidentally, Broadwood was Beethoven's favorite piano, and on at least 3 occasions he corresponded with them, and so it is thought that he could very well have been an agent for their pianos in Lisbon. Following his brother Hugh's death in March, Alexander returned to England, where he tried his hand at music publishing, but less than a year after arriving, he got back on May 17, 1785, and barely a year later, he was on his way to the United States. To be continued. Thank you for listening.